Dear Heavenly Father, if you could please give me the strength to help accurately tip the Dragons this week, I would be very, very appreciative. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's Burgz back at it again for another week of tips and predictions here on the Casual Athlete. And we had a big week in round 8. Two teams conceded 50, so they are off the table. And then the Titans also got their first win of the season. How good was that to see out there in Auckland? Anzac Day was a special day as well, and everything in between. But before we get into our video, guys, just a reminder to make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, whether it be tipping or fantasy videos or anything else that you want to suggest to us. We are happy to take it on. So make sure that you click that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our new content. And now let's take a quick look back at how I did last week, guys. 5 out of 8 tips correct, but the Warriors disappointing at home. I thought that they would get this one done against the Titans, although in my head going into this game, I started to warm to the Titans a lot more. They did have nothing to lose, and I didn't take that into account when tipping the Warriors here, but they stormed home, the Warriors, to get within 3, but just couldn't get over the line in that last 10 minutes. I think the referee also swallowed the whistle as well and let the two teams just play it out at the end, but good on the Titans for getting their first victory of the season. St. George, now in this one, I changed my tip on the day of the game, and I know it's one of my cardinal sins, guys, but Radley pulled out for the game. Tupou was out for the game. I just thought the Roosters would lose a little bit in the middle. And St. George, well, can you blame me for tipping them? They've been so good in recent weeks and just got their asses absolutely handed to them by the Roosters on Thursday. Just a joke, really, on Anzac Day to turn up and get 60 put on you. It's pretty unacceptable, and no doubt St. George will be licking their wounds after that one. The Storm, I tipped them 1-12, but they really just destroyed the Rabbitohs. I don't know whether the Rabbitohs were even ready for that. They've also not been rewarded either by their opponent this week, which we'll get into in a sec, but the Rabbitohs just can't get anything going at the moment, and the Storm, well, they were well aware. I think it was the best game that all 4 of their spine members had played in a while together, so that is good signs for them. The Sea Eagles did it easy in the end, won this game 13+, but I tell you, Micah Sevo is going to have a talking to after this one. It's just not good enough. I know he scored 3 tries in this game, but to let his team down in such a crucial moment when they were in the game, and he goes and does something very stupid and costs himself 10 minutes in the bin, and basically the game was over after that. You can't play with 10 men in that final 10 minutes, especially against a team like Manly. They'll make you pay, and they definitely did. The Broncos out of Campbelltown. Not going to lie, I did not watch this game, but it appeared that the Broncos got it done pretty easily in the end. I know Walsh didn't finish the game, and then also had a bit of cramping issues, but he is still, again, a great player. And the Broncos moved to 8-0 in their last 8 games at Campbelltown, so not a good hunting ground for the Tigers at this point in time. A lot of talk in the media about whether they shouldn't play there or not. The Panthers, I thought they'd beat the Cowboys 13+, but we came back, we stormed into this game, and we didn't die wondering, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a reaction this week. I wanted to know if my Cowboys were up for the fight this year and that they were going to put in, and they did in the second half. I know we had a lot of ball in the first half, we just couldn't capitalise, and it was a bit tough to watch, but I thought that we gave the Panthers a good fight, and that's all I wanted to see. For the Dolphins, wow, they bombed so many tries in the second half in this game. Good on the Knights for getting the win, but I think it's more a case of the Dolphins losing this game than the Knights actually winning it. David Armstrong, a highlight on debut, got a try. That's good for him. He played pretty well. In my opinion, he was actually one of the Knights' best players on the field. Him and Dylan Lucas always look really good there. And the Sharkies, well, they are looking solid up the top now with a very consolidating victory over the Raiders, 40-0. Man, I didn't expect that scoreline coming. I knew the Sharks would get it done pretty easily, but for the Raiders not to be able to score a point at home, think it tells you a lot about how Jamal Fogarty really is able to run this team and get them playing the right kind of football, because earlier in the season against the Sharks, that wasn't the case. I think the Sharks are a little bit of a different team now. All right, after seeing last week's tips, guys, let's have a look at the leaderboard in the TCA tipping comp that we are currently running. And Benny Backshots is still in the number one position, but this time it is by a legitimate point. No margins available there. Also a great margin, though, for Benny as well with the 79 there. We have a new man into second. We've got Steve, Usher Man, coming in there. And then in third, we have a new person as well. We've got Jeff for J Fitz P04. Well done to those guys. Keep putting in your tips, guys, each and every week. I do update everyone about the tipping comp via the YouTube every single week. So good on everyone, and keep tipping, guys. We've got a long way to go this season, but Benny, good on you, mate. Keep it going. Okay, guys, let's get into the tips for this week. We start on Thursday at Accor Stadium, where the Rabbitohs will be taking on the Panthers. Now, in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Panthers have the better record, winning 8 out of those 10 games. And for the Rabbitohs at the moment, I can't say where their season's going to end up this year. Maybe it's a reverse of last year. Maybe we'll see a good back end of the season where they'll hit some form and look like they're going to make the 8 and not make it in the end. But I just can't see it right now. They're not playing with any fluidity. They had a couple of glimpses against the Storm. They sort of managed to get back into that game, but just couldn't go on with it. And their defense is just a mess at the moment. Storm finding so much space in the middle, and it really opened the game up for guys like Pappenhausen and Hughes and Munster at his rampaging running best, and Harry Grant had his best game of the year as well, just because of what was presented in front of them, and that was a defensive line that's not on the same page right now. Their opponent this week, the Panthers, well, they had Scott Sorensen miss last week's game, and they also had Leota miss last week's game, so they may be available for this game. The Rabbitohs still have a few outs with Latrell and Johnston and Totola and Campbell and Ilias and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not so sure that the Rabbitohs can turn it around. I know they've hired David Ferner to work on their defensive game, but I still think that's going to take maybe months to even years to work out. It took Penrith a long time to work it out. They found a system, it worked, and they still kept that same system with guys like Serraldo and Webster and all that moving on to other coaching jobs. Implementing it now may be a little bit too late for maybe Jason Demetriou, who's possibly not going to see out the rest of the season. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not tipping the Rabbitohs in this game. I refuse to do it. If you do tip them, you are a very brave person, but I'll be going the Panthers in this one. I'm not so sure they'll be as dominant as I possibly want them to be, but I'm going to go the Panthers 13+. Our second game of the round, we're back at Four Pines Park, where the Sea Eagles will be taking on the Raiders. And in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Sea Eagles have the better record, winning 7 out of those last 10 games. And for the Raiders, it was a difficult Sunday afternoon, and they now have to back it up on a 5-day turnaround to play on Friday. The early game on Friday as well. That's a tough schedule from the NRL there. No doubt Ricky Stewart will be upset about that one. But I think for the Sea Eagles right now, they were good without being great against Parramatta. I think that Parramatta were definitely a lot better than they were against the Dolphins. But once the Sea Eagles' attack started going, I still think they have some issues with their defense, mind you. But once their attack started going, they got guys like Saab, Free, Garrick had a very good game as well. Turbo, I actually think he didn't have a lot of involvement in the game. Again, like there were patches where I thought Manly were going to go on with it and really put a score on Parramatta, but Parramatta stayed in it. So we'll have to see how they turn up this week against a Raiders side that, well, just completely dropped the ball against the Sharks. Raiders should get Elliot Whitehead back for this game. I think Toff Sipley should come in for Manly, but as far as the result goes, I'm going to be tipping Manly in this game. I just don't see, on the back of a 5-day turnaround, the Raiders getting any better with Fogarty out. I know Weeks did okay. I think Strange did okay, but I did notice a lot of clunkiness, and it seemed to be, there was a couple of times where Strange really wanted the ball and Levi looked the other way. gave it to KO Weeks. I'm like, maybe we should give it to the guy who's been here for 8 weeks and in the same position. And there was a couple of times where I saw Ethan get a little bit frustrated that he wasn't getting the ball when he wanted it. So yes, I know he had to give it to KO Weeks to really flesh him into the side, but I just think they need to stick with the bloke who's been there for the first 8 weeks of the season and been doing a pretty good job as well. I'm going to go the Seagulls in this one, 13 plus. Our second Friday game is up at Suncorp, where the Broncos will be taking on the Roosters. Now, in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Roosters have the better record, winning 7 out of those last 10 games. And they also got a win in round 1 this year, 20-10 against the Broncos. So in this one, you could probably say that the Broncos will be looking for a little bit of revenge. On both sides, there should be some injuries that come back into it. We should have Cobbo and Mam available for this game, and that would make the Broncos back to full strength. And then the Roosters should also get Radley and Tupou coming back from this game. Tupanua should also be available as well, but we'll have to wait and see on his fitness just at the moment. For this game, it's a bit tough for me. I think over the last couple of weeks, the Broncos, while they've been trying to get back to full fitness, haven't exactly played the best opposition, but the Roosters, yeah, they were good last week. I can't really put it past them how much they needed a big win like that to really establish some dominance and get their confidence back, get into the groove of scoring points in bunches. And the Dragons just did not have an answer for what they were doing last week. It was virtually unstoppable at times. And Manu, I think Walker was outstanding in this game. That kid is just growing in spades at the moment, and his goal kicking has gotten so much better since when he first started in the league. So what I'm expecting from this matchup is a cracking one. It's a good Friday night game. Both teams are fairly full strength at this point in time. That's what you want to see from these two teams. But I've just got to give it to the Broncos right now. I think they've got their full accompaniment back. Reynolds is under a little bit of an injury cloud at the moment. Reese didn't finish the game the other day, although I think it was just cramps. So if that continues, maybe he might need to get a bit more pickle juice or a bit more water into the bones, into the old veins there. But I'm going to have to go with the Broncos on this one. And I just think being beaten by the Roosters in round 1, it'll add a little bit of venom into a few tackles for them as well. I don't think they want to get beaten by the Roosters 2 times in 2024. I'm going to go the Broncos 1-12. Super Saturday opens up at Accor Stadium, where the Dogs will be taking on the Tigers. And in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Dogs have the better record, winning 6 out of those last 10 games. Dogs had a week off, so that was good for them to get a few of their injured guys a bit more time to heal. A couple of niggles around the camp as well. And I think Jacob Preston and Kurt Mann will also be coming back for this game. For the Tigers, I think playing out of Campbelltown just isn't working for them at the moment. They had a pretty miserable encounter with the Broncos. I mean, it's tough to come up against the Broncos when you're a club trying to build towards success anyway. And, they're a kind of club that may halt your momentum in some way. But I do believe that they gave the best of themselves out at Campbelltown. And, they didn't get blown out of the park. So that is something that they can take away from them. I mean, the Broncos are a very good side. In this game, I think that Dogs with a week off, they're high on confidence at the moment, going into the bye with a massive win against the Knights. And the Tigers in the last couple of weeks have just dipped a little bit. The shine on guys like Galvin have kind of, dripped away a little bit. I think they've come up against some better teams, better quality opposition as well. So in this one, I'm actually leaning more towards the Doggies. But I just think the Tigers will give it a fair crack this week. This game could be very close. I'm picking maybe a penalty goal or field goal to be in it, so I don't think there's going to be much in it here. In saying that, though, I do think the Tigers have the better forward pack, whereas the Dogs, for me, have the far superior outside back, so it's going to be very good to watch. I'm going to go the Dogs, 1-12. Super Saturday continues on the Gold Coast, where the Titans will be taking on the Storm. Now, in the last 10 games between these two teams, again, it's a good record for the Storm, where they have won 9 out of the last 10 games against the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast most recent win coming last year at Seabus Super Stadium, where they won 38-34. Big high-scoring game there. In this game, the Storm should get Nelson back. I know he didn't finish the game last week, but I'm being told that it was a bit more of a precautionary issue. Same with Xavier Coates, who didn't play the whole second half. Tui Kamikamica should be a week away for this game, so he probably will not play. And on the Titans side of things, Keenan Palacia should be available, and Philip Sammy should come back into the side, although we'll wait and see whether they pick him or not. Good for the Titans to get their first win of the season last week. I know that a lot of pressure was mounting around the club, the coach, everyone involved at that club. So good on them for getting the win there. Not a lot of people picked it. I picked it last week. I thought that the Seagulls probably were the team that were going to beat them, but maybe we need to start talking about the Warriors and the way their season's heading at the moment. And we'll get into that in a moment. But coming up against the Storm, who are playing some very good football at the moment, albeit they did get their biggest win of the season last week. But God, they have played some tough opposition this year, and they've more often than not come out on top. And I'm not so sure I see the Titans as tough opposition. I know that the Titans right now, they've probably got nothing to lose, so they'll throw, everything at the wall and everything at the Storm to see if they can jag a win here. But I just don't see it happening. I just thought last week the Storm really got on the same page, especially the 1, 6, 7, and 9. Those guys were outstanding. I don't even need to say their names just because when you've got a team that's possibly got the best 6 in the game, the best 9 in the game, I would say a top 5 fullback and a top 5 halfback in the game, it's going to be pretty tough for any team to come away with a victory against that, and especially when they're firing on all cylinders. I'm going to go the Storm in this one, 1-12. The final game on Super Saturday is up at North Queensland, where we have the Cowboys taking on the Dolphins. And earlier this season, my Cowboys gave these guys a touch-up at Suncorp Stadium. I think it's one of the losses earlier in the season that most people don't remember about the Dolphins, considering they've done pretty well since then. Although last week, I will say against the Knights, they were a bit disappointing. They let themselves down with a lot of errors, a few penalties going either way, and then just blowing tries. I think they had a couple of tries in the second half, earlier in the second half, where they probably should have gone on to score and just absolutely botched it. And it ended up costing them the game in the end. They scored a few tries late in the game, and Asako just unfortunately wasn't clutch enough to kick those goals there. Probably strapped for a little bit of time as well, needing to kick those goals. So I get why he missed them, but his goal kicking at the moment needs some serious work. He's got the old banana bend going on at this point in time. I don't know if he can work it out in time for this game as well. Just fix it up at training, Jermaine. They should get Herbie Farnworth back for this game, though. That's a welcomed in for them, even though Avarillo has been doing very well in that right centre position that Herbie was playing. So, and Tessie New's been pretty good as well. So it's going to be tough for Farnworth to come back in here, although I'm fairly certain that he will be back in there because he is the marquee signing as well. Flegler, I'm hearing, is still a couple of weeks away with that shoulder injury. I'm not too sure of the severity of it, but we were originally told a couple of weeks, and now he's another couple of weeks away. So he's looking at about spending roughly a month and a bit on the sideline for this one. I'm not sure on the fitness of Felice Kafusi, and then Kenny and Jesse Bromwich will possibly be out for this game as well. So fair few troops out for the Dolphins, but they've got some guys who are stepping up at this point in time. Oren Keeley doing quite well. Max Plath, again, was a lovely little terrier, wasn't he? He's just a little bulldog out there, does all the grunt work that you need someone to do. And that's what you love to see. Cowboys, they should get Helam Lukey back for this game. Welcomed in as well, even though Finny Fuyaki, I thought, had his best game of the season last week against Penrith. And we just couldn't get over the line. Unfortunately, in that first half where we had a lot of possession down on Penrith's line, we just weren't able to crack them, and that is the Penrith system coming to the forefront, isn't it? Their defence, especially on their goal line, is just outstanding and something you've got to marvel at, unfortunately. For us, though, I thought we showed some fight, though, in the second half and really got back into that game. And for us, I desperately think we need a win to get back on track. Although, with the Queensland Derby and the fact that the Dolphins lost to us earlier in the season, I expect them to put up a massive fight next week as well. So this could be anything. I'm going to go the Cowboys, though, and back them. I don't like that we're favourites in this game, but I'll deal with that when it comes to it. I'm going to go the Cowboys, 1-12. Moving on to Sunday now, and we've got the Knights taking on the Warriors at McDonald Jones Stadium. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, it is split 5-5. So I think the Warriors will be looking for a bounce back here. The Knights, yes, they limped home with a victory last week and were pretty good in the first half. But I've got to say the Dolphins blew a lot of chances and could have easily walked away with that game had they held onto the ball a bit more. And for the Warriors, well, they had a very similar situation to the Dolphins against the Knights. Against the Titans, they were out of it with about 15 minutes left and then stormed home to make it a 3-point game and just couldn't get over the line against the Titans in that last 8 minutes or so. They had all the ball. They were dominating possession, dominating territory as well. Some big, hard-hitting runs from Chance Nickel-Klokstad. We also had Adam Blake rampaging towards the end of the game. But I just don't know if this Warriors team are the Warriors of last year. I'm thinking that we're putting way too much expectations on them, and they're kind of doing what I thought they would do. And originally in our ladder predictions video earlier this year, I had the Warriors missing the 8. I'm not so sure they're going to miss the 8, but I don't expect top 4 from them. Right now, the kind of football that they're playing, they're becoming a bit like the Warriors of old, where they're a little bit hot and cold, and I actually think that teams are figuring them out every week, and they're not playing football until they absolutely have to. And right now, they're getting behind in games and having to come back into it by playing some, proper Warriors football. So, yeah, I'm a bit confused as to what their game plan is right now. They're not defending well either, letting in a lot of points. This one's actually kind of tough for me. Even though the Knights don't have Kalen Ponga, they are more of a collective without him. So you've got to figure that someone's going to have to stand up. So I'm going to go tentatively the Warriors in this game. I do think they get the win after losing last week to the Titans. That's a bit embarrassing for them. I think Webster will want to get the best out of them this week. So let's go Warriors 1-12. The final game of round 9 takes us down to PointsBet Stadium, where we've got the Cronulla Sharks taking on the Dragons. Now, in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Sharks have won 9 out of those last 10 games against their crosstown rivals in the Dragons. They are also on a 7-game winning streak against the Dragons, and boy, that is daunting to look at if you are a Dragons fan. Dragons touched up last week. I think we need to speak about it. They got 60 points put on them on Anzac Day. That's the most points that's ever been put on a team in an Anzac Day clash, aside from the Storm putting on 70 points against the Warriors a couple of years ago. But in the traditional Roosters Dragons game, it's the biggest scoreline ever. So no doubt the Dragons will be disappointed this week in themselves. But I think losing Sully, one tackle into the game, did not help the situation. They have to cover a center, and Eisenhuth did his best, but unfortunately Manu got the better of him there. This is tough for me because the Dragons have just been so hard to tip, and the Sharks, I've got to say, in recent weeks, they have looked so strong. They are defending well. They've given up 6 points in 2 weeks of football, so man, I've got to give credit to the way Fitzgibbon has gotten this team to come together. And then there's also the benefit of having all of your players fit and ready to go. There's so many guys stepping up in that team right now. Hines is killing it at the moment in really good form, and I think should really be looked at as the 6 to Nathan Cleary's 7 for New South Wales Origin. Just based on form and availability right now, I've got to go with him. And then you got Ramian, and Katoa was so good on the weekend. Nikora was outstanding as well. And then McInnes, again, is doing a lot of the grunt work that we're seeing, but he didn't need to play that many minutes because he dominated early and they just got the running of it, went up 24-0. And, you can afford to give good players like that a rest if they've done their job early. So that's exactly what Fitzgibbon did. In this game, though, I'm actually going to go the Dragons for the upset. I know it's a massive wild card to a lot of people. The Dragons will also be my Hills Cricket Academy lock of the week. So get on the Dragons. I think they actually get a win here. I'm only saying that because the last few games have gone win, loss, win, loss, win, loss to either the home team or the away team. And the last team that won a game in that pattern was the Sharks, and it was a home game. So now the away team is due to win. So that means that the Sharks have won the last 7 games by being the home and away team in this rivalry. Call me crazy, but I think the Dragons bounce back this week. Flano marked it down in the calendar. His return to PointsBet Stadium. It will be a great thing to watch. Let's go Dragons, 1-12. So that's it for this week's video, guys. What do you think about my tips? Let me know down in the comment section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, and I'll catch you on the next one.